The art of politics is the art of war. And as we just shared in the last section, there are reasons for politics. And we're going to go through some of the additional items that are included in politics. This section is going to be a little bit longer. The Jamie video that you're going to look at along with these other videos. It's going to make this probably closer to 20-25 minutes long. The Jamie video is really good because it's basically an Agilist that tried to come over into the product and organization boxes and try to give advice to executives on how they can become more agile and all the frustrating things that Jamie ran into. And he was bemoaning the fact that he didn't feel that there were any frameworks out there that you could just, do these things over and over again. He didn't feel that there was anything that was duplicatable. And so that's basically not correct. That's what flow is all about. Politics arise because you have missing agreements or division or lack of vision, and the main thing is politics is a blood sport. And a lot of Agilists aren't prepared to step into the octagon and do full body contact or full contact martial arts in figuratively in the business arena. The thing that politics leads to is friction, confusion, underperformance, and gridlock. The way that one of the tools that we use to manage this is the stakeholder analysis, and we look at it in terms of both interest and effort. And then how to mitigate the politics by using vision and the culture and communications and building critical mass. Now, I'm going to put this link and include the video in with this presentation. So I've grouped the videos together. And this was Jamie. He's an Agile coach. And if you want, you can pause here, go back to the playlist, watch that video. Watch about the first 3 minutes of the video. You'll get the gist. But if you want to watch the whole thing, it's just under 10 minutes. And by the way, in answer to Jamie, he said that there's nothing out there that helps you manage the politics. That's simply not true. This is what flow is all about. We're going to talk about politics a little bit later. We're going to have some fun with that. And I'm going to show you how you deal with the politics. And we're also going to talk about, and I talk about this in the transformation deck when we talk about teal thinking. And that's at the end of the transformation deck. And teal thinking is a idea that has started coming into different organizations and such. And the teal thinking is basically that 6 or 7% of the population can be teal thinkers, and then you had orange thinkers, and then yellow thinkers, and green thinkers. And when you look at that, it gives a perfect explanation to why Jamie was getting so frustrated dealing with the politics. He even says, I go to these companies, I tell them what they need to do, and nothing happens. Well, that's because you're dealing with the inertia of an organization. And if the executives aren't in the transformation, if they aren't leading the transformation, literally not just talking the talk, but walking the talk. If they're not there doing that, then it's going to be really difficult for you to mitigate the politics. And the flow friction analysis gives you exactly why the politics happen If you know why the politics happen, you can mitigate it. So you can't sit there and say, oh, there's nothing out there, there's no training out there that will help us deal with the politics. That's what flow is all about. It starts with the top, it starts with the leadership. Flow starts with the organizational perspective and the leader's perspective. And you need to understand how to mitigate the politics. And you're going to see that a little bit in this deck, but mostly in the transformation deck on how to mitigate the politics. And our books, they're both there to help you understand how you mitigate the politics. Read both books. The whole path is there. Ted and I grew up in a political family. Our dad was an elected official successfully for 33 years in the state of Michigan. And what he taught us about politics and how to manage it, how to mitigate it, and how to create critical mass so that you win. There is a way to survive the blood sport called politics, and do not be fooled. It is a blood sport. If you do not recognize that, if you're coming in as an agile coach and you think that you can sit in a circle, hold hands, sing kumbaya with the leadership, and that's going to work, I got news for you. That ain't how it works. So you're going to want to learn how to effectively mitigate the thing called politics. And remember, it is a blood sport. And if you're not interested in full contact sports, then you may or may not want to be an agile coach or an enterprise agile coach. You may want to rethink your career, just like Jamie talks about in this video. It's a great video. It's really honest. It's really open. I really like it. I love his transparency, but he wasn't correct in everything that he said. So go watch the video, then come back, and we'll keep going. Usually, politics are a result of missing agreements. They're a result of division or lack of vision or a fractured vision. The politics can erupt just because somebody has a hidden agenda, or maybe it's not hidden and it's just a personal agenda. So politics have a lot of reasons that they pop up, but primarily it's because somebody doesn't agree with the overall vision of what the organization is trying to do. And if you think about the employee engagement survey, where only 13% are engaged and 87% are either disengaged or actively, aggressively disengaged, where they're working against what you're trying to achieve. If you got 20%, 1 out of every 5 people working against you, guess what? You're going to have a boatload of politics. And politics is a blood sport. And I think that that's what sends many agilists running for the door, is the fact that politics is a blood sport. And if you're used to working in a safe team environment that's protected, where everybody can sit in a circle, cross-legged, holding hands, singing kumbaya, which is great if it helps the team get the work done. If you're used to that, and then you walk over into the other areas, into those other boxes, like the program box or the portfolio box or the C-suite, you're going to experience a very different world. Everyone's smiling and everyone's polite to each other, and they're all speaking a language that if you're not able to understand what you're saying, you will become a victim, the next victim of the political battles that are going on between the gladiators in the arena. So it's a blood sport, and you better be prepared to be getting some battle scars if you dare enter this arena. Now, the quote I'm going to share with you is from like 14 or 400 years ago. Okay. And first we'll share the quote. It must be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new system. For the initiator, or the person coming up with the idea, has the enmity of all who would profit by the preservation of the old institutions. Okay, everyone who wants to keep doing it the way we were used to doing it. And merely lukewarm defenders and those who would gain by the new ones. So at best, people are only going to be lukewarm defenders of the change that somebody wants to make. And that quote was from Machiavelli. Oh, sorry, not 400 years ago, 500 years ago. Okay? And so this is as true today as it was 500 years ago. All right? And regardless of what you think about Machiavelli, might makes right, whatever. You got to understand, if you're coming up with something new and you want to do a transformation, if you want to do a change to the organization, everyone who would profit by keeping it the old way, they're going to go out of their way to make sure they keep the old way. And for those who would be willing to do the change, at best they're going to be lukewarm. I mean, that just sums it up so perfectly that every time I brought this quote back, I probably haven't used it now in almost 20 years, but I pulled it out here the other day, and I actually used it last fall with one of the teams that I was working with, because the more that you've been around and the more assignments and clients that you've seen, even though it's different, the more it's alike than different. An organization is like a tree full of monkeys, all on different limbs at different levels, some climbing up, some climbing down, others simply falling off. And I'm pretty certain I see one of my friends there, the second one in on the left. I'm pretty sure I worked with that guy here sometime during the last 25 years. Now, the monkeys on top look down and see a tree full of smiling faces. The monkeys on the bottom look up and see nothing but, that's right, politics. And that leads to friction, confusion, underperformance, and in the worst cases, gridlock. So what I'm about to share with you is the basis for how you would do a stakeholder analysis. It comes from how to run a successful political campaign, or even a successful marketing campaign for that matter. And the first thing is to understand your stakeholders. And you need to understand that there's more than just power and interests that play here. We'll also look at a second set of analysis that looks at power and effort. Because while somebody might be interested in what you're doing, they might not put any effort into it, either to help you or to hinder you. So we'll look at that separately. For power, we're looking at does the individual have a high level of power in the organization, or do they have a low level of power? And then for what you're trying to do, whether it's a project, program, product, whatever, are the people not interested, or are they highly interested in what you're doing? So in this example, you can see that we didn't put real names here in order to protect the guilty, the innocent. What you'll see here is that we have a bunch of people, we've done the stakeholder analysis, and we mark the post-it notes with either a plus, a minus, or a 0. The pluses are the people that are for you. The minuses are the people that are either against your project or program that you're working on, or they're actually against you. We could even split this out into an additional area. You know, are they for or against the project, or are they for or against you? Because they might like the project, but if they don't like you, they may go out of their way to, as we would say in Swedish, put a stick in the wheel of your bike. And everybody knows that if you throw a stick in the front wheel of somebody's bike, they're going to do a header over the handlebars in light speed. So there's many ways that you can apply this, but for right now, we'll just keep it at the stakeholder level and assume that the interest is towards your product, service, or result that you're trying to deliver. And so you need to map the stakeholders. And we have a saying, don't convert the heretics. Now, I don't mind working with a skeptic. I love a good challenge, because skeptics don't necessarily mean that they're against you. But the heretics are the ones that are adamantly opposed to what you're doing, what you're trying to deliver. And so in political campaigns and in marketing campaigns, you're trying to create critical mass. And you do that not by converting the heretics, all of the minuses. You do that by converting the people who are neutrals or zeros. The pluses you already have with you. And if you think back to the Machiavelli quote, at best you're going to have people who are neutral. So Machiavelli would have put zeros everywhere for those that are for you. And he would have had a lot more people up there against you. So his ratio of for and against would have been very heavily weighted towards those who are against. But I think you get the idea. Most people don't do this these days, but political campaigns have been doing this for decades. They're not going to spend a lot of time trying to flip a voter who's already made up their mind to support the other candidate. They're a minus, just ignore them. But if somebody's undecided, which is a zero or a neutral, you go after them. They're the ones that you need. And if you can flip them, then you can gain the critical mass to win the campaign. And so this is straightforward campaign management 101 on how to get the critical mass that you need to deliver successfully your project, product, service, or result. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a second dimension to this. The first two slides on stakeholder analysis were regarding interest. The next two slides are on effort. Just because they're interested doesn't mean they're actually going to do something about it. And so keep that in mind, that if you've got people who are against you, but they're not going to put out any effort to try to derail what you're doing, then you can just as well ignore them for the time being and work with all of the team members that are either neutral or for you in order to keep everything moving forward. So that can end up looking something like this, where you have a bunch of either high power or low power people who aren't putting any or almost no effort into opposing what you're trying to get done. Hopefully everybody who is on the plus side or even the zero side are going to put in the effort needed for you to win the day. And this also goes back to, if you've got team members that are either neutral or against you, you have to find a way to either neutralize them or get them off the bus. Remember, the flow formula in the flow friction analysis tool that we shared earlier is all about identifying, is the person the right person? And so you can do a stakeholder analysis like this for your team members, and then you can do it for the wider stakeholders and even further up the food chain, depending on your situation. The way that we mitigate and manage politics is using vision, culture, and cascading vision, obviously, is one of the key tools for mitigating politics. You go back to the vision. If the vision is correct, if the vision is linked, the opponents are going to have a hard time disagreeing. And you have to nail them down and document it and say, do you agree that this is the vision? Yes or no? If not, then I need to escalate this to your boss. And then their boss can work with them and try to find out, hey, why aren't you in alignment with what this team is trying to do? And so we would also use the 4D model and the 4R model, depending on if it's an individual that we need to work with, or a 4D model if it's the whole team that we have to work with. Sometimes you're dependent on other teams, and so if there's politics arising between the teams, you better be ready to use the different models that we have. And one of the things that we've used successfully in the past, in order to communicate the vision 10 times more than you think you need to, is to use the internal roadshow. We call it a dog and pony show, whatever. But we would actually do a tour in order to start aligning people, communicating to them, telling what this change is all about or what this new software is all about, and starting to build the enthusiasm and momentum for people to come with on the journey to the change that you want to achieve. Most of the times these days, companies just don't have apparently the resources. They always have time. It's always like, they never have time to do it right the first time around. But there's always time and budget to do it right a second time around. And I've seen that over and over again in companies. So it's a very odd behavior. If you want to get the most value out of your investment, do it right up front. I don't understand why people would want to, let it fail and then, try again. That, to me, that just seems way outside the realm of sound reason. In the way of a recap, we looked at the Jamie video, we've looked at politics and why it arises and what it leads to with friction and confusion and all of those things. We looked at the stakeholder analysis, and a lot of times people will look at stakeholder management or analysis only in terms of, are they for my project or product or process, whatever I'm working for? And people neglect to look at it from a personal standpoint. Are they also for me or against me? And the main thing is, don't try to convert the heretics. Just try to be able to get the people who are on your side or the neutral ones. The neutral ones are the ones you want to focus on and get them into your camp, because when the negative people see that there's enough people out there that have rallied around you, they're less likely to try to take you down. And that's one of the ways that we mitigate the politics. The other way is using vision for conflict management and using the culture of the organization to your advantage. The application is, do you have politics in your organization? No, nobody has that. Well, what steps have you taken to mitigate and or eliminate politics from your day-to-day work? Okay. And by using vision, you can really cut down on the issues that politics creates. And do you really know who is on your side? Not just those who say they are. Are they walking the talk, or are they just talking the talk? So there are some links to some of the other things that we've been talking about here, where you're going to start to apply it via this type of tools.